What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Waiting Room, the show that challenges you to thrive, not just survive in every area of your life. I'm your host, Ruchikanya, and today I'll be talking about our relationships with people. So just for a quick recap, in the last episode, I talked about how our relationship with God matters and how it sets the foundation for all of our relationships with people and with ourselves. So today I'm going to talk about relationships with people. We need people in our lives. We were not created to be loners or to live in isolation. When God created Adam, he put him in a garden and he made him a companion shortly after. So that sort of set the foundation. So we need people, so not just romantic relationships, but all kinds of relationships in our life. Obviously, God thinks relationships are important, so they should be important to us as well. And even if you were to look at like the 10 commandments, the first 4 have to do with our relationship with God directly, and then the other 6 have to do with the relationships we have with people. Starting with our parents and everybody else, and how to live in peace or how to live well with those around us. So there are different types of relationships, and each one is important. Each one has its place in our lives. So we have our family. These are our parents, our siblings, spouse, children, grandparents, cousins, aunts, uncles, all of those. So these are the relationships that were given to us. We really cannot pick our family for the most part. And, you're born into whatever family you were born into. We can't really choose that. And something my mom would always tell us growing up was charity begins at home. So your family is sort of like the training ground of how you're going to treat other people in your life. So if you cannot treat your family members with respect, with love, chances are you're probably not going to be nice to a stranger, somebody you don't know, and you're not going to treat them with love and respect. So that's our first type of relationship. These are our families. They help us relate to everybody else. You learn basically everything you learn from home. You learn in your from your family, from your siblings, you learn from your parents. And then you have your friends. So I consider friends a family that you pick for yourself. So your biological family, you don't pick them. They're kind of given to you. And then your friends, you can pick your friends. You choose whether you like a person or you don't like a person. You want to be friends with them. It's like, hey, they're funny like me, so let's be friends. Or they're goofy like me, let's be friends. So a lot of times when we pick a friend, it's because we have something in common. So whether it's a hobby, shared interest, shared beliefs. Like I have like my best friend I met in church, and she's my sister, my soul sister, she's my sister in Christ. And we have that shared belief. And you might meet friends in different places, at the gym, or sometimes people you work with might become friends, and so forth. Next, we have our professional relationships, or our co-workers or business partners. These are people we interact with on a daily basis. They're not family. They're not like your close circle of friends, but these are people you work with. You basically have the same goal, in the sense you're working for a company, or you have a task that you're all trying to accomplish, and you build relationships. You start to learn to work with each other. You respect each other's opinions. You respect each other's work. And then lastly, we have our acquaintances, also known as peripheral relationships. So these are the people you interact with on a regular basis, and you might not be like super close to them. So like your neighbors, or the coffee shop lady, or your mail person, male man or male woman, or just random people that you see regularly, but you're not quite like super close to them. I'm sure there's so many others. That you could also include romantic relationships, somewhere between family and friends. I guess you start off as friends and then become family over time. But there are so many other types of relationships. Most of our relationships fall into one of these 4 categories, and each of them are so important in our lives because they help us grow. They challenge us in different areas. Say, like, my best friend might help me in one area or might challenge me in one area of my life, whereas my coworkers challenge me in another, and my family challenges me in another. So all of these kind of help you become a well-balanced human being. So we need interaction, we need friends, we need people in our lives. Having people in our lives challenges us to not be selfish. You're caring about others is important. So, if you have people in your lives that you care for and you can serve them. So, and that, the Bible says that iron sharpens iron. We grow when we interact with other people, because you learn over time things not to say, things not to do, and how to be a nicer person, how to be a decent human being, how not to be a jerk. Those sort of things you learn as you interact with people. So if you're like this lone ranger living up in the mountains by yourself, you're probably going to end up weird, and that's not a good thing. Friends are good. Friends are helpful to us, and we need people in our lives. Even the Bible, there's so many scriptures about, relationships and friendships and things. One of the scriptures that I like, it's in Ecclesiastes, it says, two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls, one can help the other up. But pity if anyone who falls has no one to help them up. Also, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of three strands is not easily broken. So even, the Bible, even God shows us that it is important for us to have people in our lives. And the quality of friendships is also important. It's not really about quantity, like how many friends you have, how many Facebook friends and connections. Chances are, if you have like 500 connections or friends on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, those are not real friends. When I say real friend, I'm talking like somebody you can call in the middle of a crisis, in the middle of a night or something, and they're there to help you, or somebody who knows you, who understands you. You want good quality friendships, and that's what's gonna make the difference. So if you have a few friends and they're really great friends, that's awesome. You're already ahead of most people, because a lot of people, we've kind of lost over the years, we've kind of lost that deep connection with people. So some people have a hard time making friends and keeping friends, and it could go both ways. Somebody once told me, do you want friends, you have to be a friend. So if you find yourself always like in the middle of contention and strife, you're always in the middle of drama, do some self-examining and just see, like, okay, why do I attract these kind of people? What is it about me that all of my relationships are like this? And just reevaluate your friendships. Relationships thrive when there are boundaries, when boundaries are defined. So each type of relationships, whether it's family, friends, co-workers, acquaintances, they all function by boundaries. So like friends have a certain access to your life that, say, co-workers don't, and family members, say, like if you're married, your spouse, of course, you share a life, so finances and everything else is shared, whereas your other friends don't have that access to your life. So each relationship is governed by boundaries, and I'm going to talk a lot more about relationships in future podcasts, just having good relationships and things like that. But from my experience, a relationship goes sour when a line has been crossed, when somebody has stepped out of those boundaries and done or said something that was out of line, so to speak. Also, to have a healthy relationship, communication is so important, and that's on every level, whether it's family, friends, acquaintances, co-workers. And listening well also goes with communicating. So listening well to people, and that's something like I personally have been working on, is to be a better listener. Because a lot of times when we're talking to people, we're just kind of like talking over each other, and we're not really listening to what people are saying. Just listening to people, communicating, expressing your boundaries or expressing yourself clearly helps in your relationships as well. How you treat people is important. Treat people the way you would want to be treated. Be kind, be patient with people, be forgiving, be gentle. So all of those, it's important because that's how you would want to be treated by other people as well. And that's something like we could all use more of in this world. Be slow to speak and just listen to people, listen to what they're saying, be kind, be a friend, help them when you can. And kind of going back to what I said about the quality of relationships. Now, I do understand there are some unhealthy relationships out there. And a few episodes down the road, I'm going to talk about healthy relationships, how to define a healthy relationship, characteristics in a healthy relationships, and then follow that up with an episode on unhealthy relationships, because we've all had toxic people in our lives, and sometimes we just need to create that separation for the sake of our sanity. And there's some people you just don't need in your life. Not everybody that you come across or that you interact with has to be a significant part of your life. There's some people you just kind of meet and you part ways and life goes on, because they might not be the healthiest influence for you. And I think some people have a hard time with separating themselves or saying no, and that causes problems for them because they end up entertaining bad relationships, unhealthy relationships longer than they need to. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a future episode, but quality of relationships is so important. So I would love to hear your feedback on this topic. If you have any experiences you want to share with me about your relationships, if you have any questions that you would want to be featured in a future Q&A segment, don't hesitate to email thewaitingroom@gmail.com. All right, and then moving on to the book recommendation for this episode, it is This Present Darkness. So it's Christian fiction. It's by Frank Peretti. It's a great book. It deals a lot with spiritual warfare. It'll change your perspective on prayer and, the power of prayer and all of that. So This Present Darkness, if you haven't read it before, I definitely encourage you to find a copy, get an ebook or the audiobook of it as well. And lastly, before I let you go, I just want to challenge you this week to reach out to a friend or a family member, maybe somebody whom you don't communicate with very often, and just tell them how much you appreciate them. We don't hear that enough in our lives. Cherish the friendships, the relationships that have been given to you. All right, so that's it for today's episode. Thank you for your time and your support. Look out for the next episode. We'll be talking about relationship with ourselves. In the meantime, share this podcast with a friend. If you have any feedback or any questions for me, please email thewaitingroom@gmail.com. Until then, take care.